So I'm standing there,
Um,
and the spaghetti's all over the floor, and I'm wondering, what the hell am I gonna do?
I'm
Like,
like, fuck, are my knees getting weak? Shit.
how am I gonna clean up all this spaghetti in time?
Yeah.
So I just
Ah,
put it in my pocket
You're
for later,
stuffing
for safe.
spaghetti into your pockets for safekeeping.
Mm-hmm.
fuck.
Hello, this is Spin It. We're starting a podcast for music that we want to share with each other, and music that we want to listen to together and discuss. And we wanted the format to do that, so podcast seems like a good enough way to do it. And actually, for first episode, we're starting off with Naked City, an album that you suggested, Humphead. Do you want to introduce it?
Yes, I'd love to introduce it. Yeah. So, Naked City is a very interesting and all over the place album. It's one that I'd known about for a little bit, and it's kind of like one of those albums where if you're in like the circles that talk about like odd music and like I don't know, like just like music enthusiast circles, if you find yourself in the right place, you'll see people kind of bouncing around as like the pinnacle of of something, of some kind of moment in jazz. But the average person, even like someone who kind of finds themselves listening to a lot of music, might not even know about this album or
Yeah, I think
the kind of
Mm-hmm.
I
surrounding
think speaking
circumstances
for
of it.
both me and Samaski, we both like had no idea about this album until you
Mm,
suggested it.
yeah,
Yeah, like
and
I
it's a real
remembered
shame.
like part of it, like oh the like jazz grindcore
Yeah, I threw that out
crossover,
as a
like
joke,
yeah,
like
and then
just
I was
kind of
like, oh, it's
joking
that
about it.
one. Yeah, like
Yeah,
tangentially knew about it.
So
so
I looked up a little bit about John Zorn, the uh, creator of Naked City, and like yeah, like one of the things I was interested in is just how much he's worked on things like just recording music for films. And as somebody who has more of a
Oh,
background in film, seeing like he got his big breakout doing like covers of the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly soundtrack by Ennio Morricone was interesting to me, and seeing how I mean, even in this album as well, he's kind of referencing those film soundtracks multiple times in it.
mm-hmm.
and I knew that was something that you would appreciate. So and I remember you looking at the list of songs on there and seeing like several, songs for different films. James Bond theme, on
Yeah,
their
yeah.
Reanimator, their
Oh,
oddball
that was
renditions of
interesting to
all
me
those.
though, because like yeah, like there's so many like very varied things, and that kind of fits with the album. It's so varied throughout, but like to get into it, I guess a bit more, it's like I guess like the main thing I read with like I mean it's top of the Wikipedia is like avant-garde jazz, and it feels fairly apt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Although I feel like maybe it's just because I don't find myself listening to jazz more than I would say like punk or rock or weird electronic stuff. So avant-garde, I don't really know what to think of besides jarring.
Yeah,
When I
Yeah.
hear there's something that's just like abrasive, hard
non-conventional.
to
Yeah,
listen to. Yeah, which I guess it very much apply here,
yeah,
but I guess I also wasn't coming at the album initially, like when I very first heard it, from the right way. I was thinking this was just going to be like just all over the place, and I'd have to have this really like fine-tuned ear to pick up on like all the little subtlety. I thought it was just going to be like a junk drawer of all these different ideas that I just didn't have like the musical mind to get. But it's a really, really, really gratifying album. You can listen to it and immediately pick up on all these different interesting musical ideas.
yeah.
You can feel it
Yeah.
in your body, and you can keep listening to it and pick up on a lot more subtle things they do. And that alone made me more curious to listen to more kinds of jazz and just go exploring more. And I already did. I already started listening to Ornette Coleman and things, influences of the
Oh.
space. So I don't know if either of you kind of had that any sort of impression like that of like how immediately gratifying it was.
Oh, it was really fun
Yeah.
to listen to. I really enjoyed it. Like I didn't know what to expect going in because like I'd never really heard of it, but coming out of it, it was like there are a few tracks on there that I just really enjoyed, and like a lot of them that were just really interesting to me as well. And I guess that's as good a time as any to actually go like, let's actually single out some of the tracks that you want to talk about, because like I think the first one that stood out to me was like, I mean, opens with Batman, but the Sicilian Clan. I was getting that sort of like mobster movie vibes, and like it's like a cover of the soundtrack of a movie that was soundtracked by Ennio Morricone as well, like who I already mentioned. He got the start covering some of his soundtracks. And yeah, it was just that the kind of vibes that he's able to portray very consistently throughout some of the songs really puts you in that kind of setting, that kind of environment where you're in the film. You can imagine what's going on, you can imagine what kind of place they're trying to set this for. And it didn't really surprise me at all after I listened to a few tracks to be like, yeah, he probably does write music for films. Like, he probably does make up plenty of music, and he's imagining where that music would be played, and that seems to go pretty much throughout the album.
Yeah, because like that one really like, I think it was that one or maybe the one after, but it really like gave me vibes of like villain jazz. Like it's like this would be like the villain rats and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I'm like, I could see them like driving around listening to this.
Like evil
like,
1920s villain jazz.
Yeah, but specifically like rat villains.
Oddly enough, I get what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, and like in a good way.
Yeah.
It's cartoonish at times. Yeah, I kind of get what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're able to conjure up these really specific feelings.
Yeah, they really are.
Album that you have to describe in very very specific ways, and I guess this fits in with some of like the dressing, like the artistic vision that Jean Zorn had for like the art along with the album. Like the cover is like a guy shot in the face, but the like the other side of the album, like some of the other art that came along with the album was like, I don't know, I don't remember if it is or if he wanted to include it, but like basically like S&M photo shoots and like like depictions of like torture and shit. And
Damn.
a lot of the more like hardcore grindcore infused sections of the album feel like that sort of like sadomasochistic feeling of just being in like some weird painful orgy, right? And I don't have like a good way to describe it beyond like you like depicting it that graphically. Yeah, how do we feel about the hardcore? I feel like out of all the genres that are flying around and being like shunted in and bounced out all over this album, I feel like the hardcore and grindcore and thrash is the most like kind of surprising, you know?
Yeah.
So like
And
to be open, like the first time me and Willow listened to this, we listened to it together, and we didn't really say much about it throughout, but like we both just had it on, and I was making my own notes at the time. But like we entered like that point of the album, and I was just like, I see we have entered the grindcore section of the album, as I see the next like 8 tracks are all 12 seconds long.
Yeah, because like I was kind of like, because like I said at the start, it's like, the jazzy, the grindcore album, yeah, like they'll throw into that, but like I wasn't expecting just grindcore songs.
Yeah.
Like there's a few that it's just straight up like, that's just a whole song. It's just grindcore.
Even like some of the ones that aren't really like that, they still have those elements. Like I came off of Punk China Doll, where I really love that kind of like angry metal riff at the start, like that kind of vibe, and I really enjoyed that. And then it kind of goes to like stillness for the rest of the song, and then like it goes to like New York Flat Top Box, and it's got like this country stuff going on, Like this,
Yeah.
and it was like it was so weird for me because listening to that when it goes from like this country riff into like angry grindcore moments and back again. It's like you're just at a hoedown and occasionally getting tased.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh yeah, this is just country ah! Like every 10 seconds or so. And it was really strange to me. Like I didn't know what to make of it, but like just this it's weird because if it was just like one guy making like one, he's just playing his guitar and then he does that and he's just like expressing a lot of emotion randomly, but when it's all coordinated by a group like it is here where every instrument goes wild at the same moment, it's really unsettling.
Yeah, it really
For
is.
sure. It's very unsettling and it's very it's like hair raising, you know,
Mm.
because you have this big um I think that's like 5 or 6 piece, like the kind of main unit of Naked City, and they all basically came together playing several different genres of music, clashing them all together. That some of them come, they all have like their own different backgrounds, and influences, and seeing them all performing this weird ritual, these insane compositions is I don't know, it just feels like it's like a big like ceremony or something going on. Like they're all they're all like performing some weird sorcery,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
it's those moments where it's just like pure energy coming together, just so insane to see, being performed at the level of a whole band. And it's that sort of communal aspect of it, I think, really makes it shine. You can kind of think of all these kind of one person like megalomaniacal like music projects, but when you kind of have something that's really like democratic, and free spirited like this, I think it really is something special.
Mm. I know, Samoski, you have a lot more background in liking sort of more grindcore records. You've talked about that kind of
Mhm.
thing a lot. Like, so how did you end up enjoying that middle section?
Yeah, I thought it was really fun and really interesting. Like, the way the like saxophone and stuff was like implemented, like
Mm.
kind of, which there are like vocals at a lot of those parts, but like
Oh
in
yeah,
a lot of
angry
places,
Japanese man. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
um, and but a lot of it is like the saxophone is used in lieu of that, and I thought that was really cool. And then like um, also the way it comes in reminds me like, oh, but you mentioned earlier about like the thrash kind of elements. Like it reminded me of like Slayer like guitar solos, like with just the
Mm.
screeching like saxophone is coming in like "Wah!"
Hmm.
um just reminded me a lot of that, and I thought that was really fun.
Yeah, like it
Um
was definitely used like as a pseudo vocalist, and I know it's not the first place that saxophone's been used by that, but in the kind of more screaming oriented music where like it would
yeah,
just be a guy yelling, to hear a saxophone being used instead there is really interesting.
yeah,
Right,
I thought that too.
like the saxophone is very long tradition. Like it's it's a modulation of the human voice. It's stretching, it's performing in ways that the human voice can, and
Mm.
we place our own voice onto that, and that's what gives it its power. But I can't say I've ever heard it being used to perform grindcore vocals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, it's like there's so many things that are like, yeah, you have all these different like compositional elements, and different things that are you see in the music that's like, okay, yeah, they're doing like some like basic metal riffs here, doing these here. But they always end up like throwing like some like spin onto it, right? Like nothing here is stale, right? They pull a
Yeah.
lot of common things together,
Yeah.
but it just flips it on its head, right?
It's
I'm just gonna keep saying that through. I'm like, because it just feels like a big like slice of like a city, right?
yeah. The
Um,
thing that was
Yeah.
really like, this is gonna be a wild comparison, but like, um, it really reminds me of how people describe like the game design of like Mario Odyssey. Because you know the way that people describe it is like, all right, it's so many mechanics and small little bits that never overstay their welcome. It's like a small interesting thing
Mhm.
that's cool and it's fun, and the moment that it would stop being fun, it's gone. And there's a
mhm.
new thing to
Yeah.
replace it. And nothing ever really gets stale in the album because of that. Like, what was it? I think it was Saigon Pickup. Um, it just like it's like classic rock sounding at sometimes. It's like it goes to a reggae beat at one point. It's like bouncing between like
Yeah.
6 different genres in the same song. And it's all over the place, and it's just consistent throughout the album that it will just bounce between styles, and there's no one set genre here other than describing it as jazz. But even then, jazz as a description is like, oh yeah, you can kind of do whatever with that.
Yeah.
Right, right. In that
Cause
sense,
that's
it doesn't even really feel like a jazz album, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It feels like a music album, right?
Yeah, like I mean,
Like you
it's
can't. It's
really
hard to describe.
it's really fitting it came out of New York because this is really is a melting pot of like different genres and different scenes that must have been around there at the time.
Exactly, yeah. Because
Mhm.
John Zorn, he's a New York guy. It's where he spent a ton of time, right? And that's I don't know if he lives there at this point now, but he's a New York guy, and that's where he pulled a lot of musical influence from. Like that's how he found out about hardcore music. I was reading a Rolling Stone interview, um,
Oh.
where they were kind of pulling up some of John Zorn's comments on the whole Naked City project, and he just talks about just walking, um, just like a block or two away. He was just leaving some place, and he saw some girl with like dyed hair, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm in a hardcore band," and he's like, "What's that?" And he goes and he just goes into this like tiny venue, and he just sees like six bands playing like 10 minutes, whatever, um, and just like the experience that had on him, that basically just made him start exploring the realms of like I guess like extreme music is what you would call it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And in that sense, he does that with a lot of different music, but like metal and hardcore specifically. And I really really enjoy how he just he applauds so many different genres of styles of music throughout the whole album, right?
Yeah.
It feels like
Yeah.
a kind of celebration of the city, right?
Because it made me want to, because I mentioned to you guys, like I live in Belfast, but recently I went to a like a rock club, and it was a new club that had opened up. They had some live bands performing there, and one of the bands was like, it was just they were so blatantly a Green Day ripoff band. The guy's from Ireland, and he's trying to sound like Billy Joe Armstrong, right? And it was just so clear that they were just ripping off of Green Day. But the next guy comes up, and it's just one guy who puts a disc into I think it's like a thumb drive into like the computer, and it starts playing this like loud industrial backing, like nearly blowing out the speakers entirely. Everything's peaking as him alone with a guitar starts like performing covers of Stooges songs and like some more hardcore stuff that I didn't recognize. And it was just one guy who in this like Catholic bar in Belfast just screaming into the mic, and then just walks off stage at the end of it, and it turns out he was just a guy that worked there. And like being able to live in a city like New York, I'm just imagining you can just go walk anywhere and go to any bar, and there'll be people like that. There'll be things you can pick up. There'll be so many interesting things like that, and it makes me want to do more of that.
Yeah.
And I guess it's kind of like what like it's basically like the album is structured kind of like how um how jarring living in such like a lively space, right, is, right? Like the album is constantly throwing new things in your face and yanking them away. And the time that I've spent in big cities myself, that just living and going around and experiencing things seems like that, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Of just coming in, you kind of settle into a little groove. You go into a bar, right, or wherever, and you see somebody perform. You're like, okay, I get it. And
Yeah.
then somebody else comes in and completely throws you for a loop, and then just walks away, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then continues on to another thing, and it's just like that over and over and over again. So again, it's like it feels, the whole album feels like just like a celebration of that atmosphere
Mm.
of just experience of city life.
Have you ever had an experience
Yeah.
like that yourself, like you like just discovered something in a random bar, like, or just found out about a new genre of music that you didn't know about before, or something like that? Because I've got one in mind, but if any either of you?
Uh,
Um, I'd have to think. I'll hear what you have to say.
Okay, because like I was like 12, right, and I was in a bar in Glasgow, um,
mhm.
and this lass walks up on stage and starts performing "High and Dry" by Radiohead on the guitar, and it was the first time I'd ever heard that song, and my dad was there with me, he's a big music fan, and I was just like, what was that? Did she write that? That was incredible. And it was like this amazing rendition of it, or angelic voice. And my dad goes, "Oh yeah, that's a cover of Radiohead." And I'd never heard of them before. And I went out and I listened to Radiohead for the first time because of it.
Yeah, I had a interesting the last show I went to. Um, it was like a hardcore show. And
Was that
I
Electric
went,
Chair?
yeah.
Mm.
I went to see them. There were a bunch of bands playing, and there was this one that opened up. Um, and they started with just two guys. They brought like a drum machine out, and like um, so I was kind of like, oh, like I wonder what they're gonna do. And and they started playing this kind of like um I don't know, kind of like almost goth kind of music, like maybe closer to like death rock or something. And it was just really cool. They're like using like drum samples of um like old like Discharge songs, like a bunch of other older hardcore bands. And they would just let the drum machine just play, and then they just go crazy over it, and that was really like um I don't know. I'd always viewed like sampling stuff like positively, but that really like kind of hammered that in, like that you can
Yeah,
get really cool
I guess like
creative stuff.
tech has really changed those genres that are a lot more about sort of like the purity of just using kind of garagey sounding, like you can hear the pickups scratch and stuff like that kind of music, or you can just use samples of that kind of stuff and play it over and over again. It's like
Yeah,
it loses that, I guess, purity that people like, but it just opens up a lot of new avenues for stuff like that as well.
Mm.
yeah, because in some ways it's like kind of freeing, because like um it's like, oh well, we can't get another, like, because it
Yeah, it
used to
was
be
just
like,
two
oh, we can't
guys.
get a
Yeah, yeah,
drummer.
yeah.
Oh, I guess we can't do it. And now it's like, well, who we don't need another person now.
Like Louis was showing us,
Um,
our friend Louis was showing us a beatboxing competition last night, and these guys were like able to make multi-layered track songs just using their voice alone, not even like using a drum machine or anything or any kind of sampler. They just their voices could do that, and that kind of stuff's insane to me.
yeah, like there's so much you could do now with like different um like pedals or like synthesizer things you can just set to like play a thing over and
Mm.
over, and like looper pedals and all that stuff. You can do so much cool stuff.
Mm. I think, unfortunately, the thing that comes to mind for like the last time that I got like the most immediate thing that comes to mind when I think of the last time that I was like left completely speechless by like was when I found out about Nightcore. That was the first thing that came to mind. I was able to think of a few more times in recent years, but when I was in middle school and I discovered Nightcore from a fucking old Game Grumps episode, that did jar me because it was a completely new genre, I guess, or style of electronic music that I had never heard before, and it was just like instant, like I took to it instantly, and I only listened to Nightcore alone for like 3 months before I started listening to anything else again. But I still appreciate the genre. I don't listen to it anymore really, but I still enjoy it a lot. And then I guess in more recent times, like I was really, really, really blown away by seeing Godspeed You Black Emperor live. I had heard
Mm.
their stuff before. It doesn't really beat. You can't really comprehend how like like momentous I think is the word their live performances are, because I was just really blown away because the whole thing is basically playing instruments just
The whole thing is playing
almost like a
instruments.
yeah. And thank you all for listening to episode 1 of but yeah, like their whole thing is using a lot of like traditionally rock instruments and kind of performing them in a more like orchestral, like classical way. But there's so
Cool.
many other aspects to it that took me like away. Like they have like like, or actually I think it's actually 4 film projectors, 2 layered over each other 2 times, and they're playing film reels, and they just being there in a crowd full of people, like it was really like moving, you know.
Mm.
So that would be probably the last time that I was like really jarred by it, by some new music. But I'm kind of trying to like set things up to myself where I don't need to like be in a crowd of people to like have that experience, you
Yeah.
know, like
Yeah.
just kind of being on like a path of discovery of music and other stuff. Uh because yeah, it's expensive to do that always, and I ultimately it's like I can just sort of experience stuff
Oh
just
yeah.
however I want, you know.
I got tickets
um
to Idols in November, by the way. Here.
oh, you did? Nice.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna go see them. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to that. Um, but like we've been talking about how like jarring new things can be. Like I was blown away by, like, to come back to it, like the album that we were talking about, Naked City. Like honestly, I think like there were some parts of it that just completely threw me for a loop, and I didn't know what to expect at all. And
Hmm.
Mhm.
like, because like the reason we're talking about these kind of things that like have changed your perspective is because fundamentally this album did do that for me. Like, um, what was it? Track 4 was Latin Quarter.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Um, like it's got this kind of soul music vibe at times, but the opening sounds like a sitcom intro. I'm imagining like somebody walking into the house and then smiling at the camera while like stirring a bowl of cake batter or something. And it's like that kind of vibe, and then it just could switch entirely on a dime to like, again, those more grindcore elements, those more like hardcore elements where it's just everybody going for it at once. And I just when I thought I'd worked it out, it would throw something else at me entirely. And at times I just kind of got used to that. Like, I listened to a song back, and at one point, because I'm like, I want to listen to that again, and then I was surprised every time that it happened the second time through, but I didn't even notice it the first time through
Yeah.
because it just became part of the album. But
Yeah.
it just,
When like
you can listen to it like you said, Humpert, earlier. You can listen to it like so many more times and pick up different things every time.
Mm.
yeah, because like the one we touched on it earlier. Let's see which one was it. Punk China Doll. That one like um part of that one just is like it sounds a lot like a something like Primus would do, like a Primus song with the bass and like drum kind of, I guess, kind of like a breakdowny thing. Um,
The opening reminded me of
kind of
Baby
those vibes.
Criminal,
Yeah, I can see that.
yeah,
Yeah,
by Viagra
some
Boys. Yeah.
yeah, some of the moments on this album could kind of give similar vibes of that, like um, where it was just kind of like a really interesting, like fun vibe, where it's kind of in a way cartoony, like we said earlier.
Mm.
Um, and just fun, like not taking itself serious, like at all, which is like, or not at all, but like they'll just go off the wall, like doing stuff,
Yeah,
just
they're not
like
putting themselves in a box, definitely.
yeah, um, which is it's just really neat to see, like it just I always love like jazz being embraced in that way, where it's just like people having so much fun with it.
Yeah,
Um,
I think
and
that's.
like,
Oh, sorry.
oh no, it was pretty much done. Just saying like, um, yeah, just not being like stuck in anything, like just going
Yeah.
wherever.
Yeah, that's definitely been a difference to what I was used to with jazz. Because like I've listened to some jazz pieces before, and it's just general like there's all one consistent style throughout, even if there are a lot of change ups in tempo and tone and which instruments are taking the forefront. Like you get that it's jazz all the way through.
Mm.
And this just did
Yeah,
not care and went in any direction they wanted to at any time. Like I mentioned, like they'll throw reggae beats in there, and
yeah,
like one of the tracks just sounded like something Huey Lewis would have made. Like the start of was it Lonely Woman?
Hmm.
Like just sounds like a Huey Lewis kind of thing. It's got like the electric organ coming in. I was just like, huh? Okay, this and it's unexpected in the best way that they can just throw whatever at you and it still sticks.
Yeah,
yeah,
I think that the album is like very it's really playful in that way,
Mm.
you know. Like I don't think it's like yeah out of pocket to say that it's like a goofy album, right?
hmm,
Mm.
Like just the kind of like humor of having so like having like a cover of the Batman theme, having a cover of you know
The James
doing
Bond
like
theme,
rendition of
yeah.
the James Bond theme, complete with the like the the movie sound effects, you know,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
like
I
you know,
wasn't sure if that was literally like they input the sound effect into the song or if somebody had just worked out how to do that with their instrument and was just like throwing that in everywhere. 'Cause it's like the old Western TV show kind of like, oh no, the bullet ricocheted off a pot sound effect.
yeah. I
yeah,
think they just staple that in there. Like they just were just having fun. I mean, like even just how they have things structured, like the back and forth between different genres that are so disparate. Like you kind of have to imagine they're all kind of like smiling as they do it, you know,
Yeah.
because it's just funny. Going like having a let me count here. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 song block of just grindcore,
Yeah.
just little packets, little poppers, you know, smelling salts that just wake you the fuck up.
Mm.
Um, you know, fit with
And right
what's
off
his
of
name?
that into Chinatown as well.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
like that slow drawn back do 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 do. Like, yeah.
yeah.
So there,
That was
in many
great.
ways, it's a very yeah, very funny album.
Yeah.
Man, I love this. It's just the more I talk about it, the more I come to appreciate it. I listened to this album like 7 or 8 more times since like I decided that this would be the pilot album for the podcast. Um, and yeah, I've just grown a lot more appreciative of it, looking into the
Yeah.
backstory of the album. I really like it was basically John Zorn just picking up on a bunch of different stuff. He was like listening to like, you know, classical and stuff, and he's like, yeah, that wasn't really um into that. And then he went to go see like Sun Ra and few other few other jazz performers, jazz groups. and just being blown away by them, and then just like this whole path of discovery of different genres and finding hardcore, and then wanting to like put together like a jazz workshop, and having to like show other people hardcore when it was still very, very underground.
Oh god,
And
just
he's
going
like,
to like a bunch of classically trained jazz musicians and going, so what we're gonna do is you're just gonna hit every single
yeah,
key.
hit everything. He described another one of the musicians going, yeah, he was just like, he had me listening to some like Japanese like noise band on like a Walkman as we're going down the street. And I just think that's just really funny, like, because it's again, like, this album broke down so many like bad perceptions that I had of like jazz. Like, I had so many like apprehensions of like the whole of jazz, but just hearing that this like insane like masterpiece came together
Yeah.
because this guy was just like, oh, oh, this is really cool, and he's like getting like his friend like, hey, come here, let me show you something, and they're just like walking the streets of New York or wherever, listening to some like random obscure band. Yeah, it's just really cool.
I think jazz can really often come off like very inaccessible high art. Like, you need to be classically trained to be involved in it. You need to have like basically a degree in jazz music to get jazz music.
And it's not that, but that perception is there really strong. And it every time I have that come into my head now, I can't, like, I always remind myself, like, jazz just started off like it just started off as just like it just started off as black musicians performing in clubs and stuff, and just like performing together, right?
Yeah.
There wasn't really any like pretension about it. It wasn't studied in high academia. People weren't writing dissertations about it. It just started just from people performing music and trying to challenge themselves and others, and just having a good time, and what else have you.
I definitely get that a lot. Like, I always had that kind of apprehension of just like, I guess the idea is if you sit in front of jazz music and listen to it, you're gonna come out of it going like, oh well, I didn't get it because I don't have this level of like academic understanding of jazz, so therefore I can't truly understand it. So when I say I enjoy it, I just like how it sounds. And you kind of get in that mindset of it, when in reality you can sit there and enjoy the music without knowing anything about how it was constructed, and really just get into, okay, yeah, I like how this sounds, I like how this instrument is used, and it's all stuff that the layman can do. But yeah, I like hearing an album like this really kind of, I guess it's democratizing jazz.
Yeah, it's something that you can listen to with your heart and with your body. You know, you don't really need. I'm sure you can develop a deeper understanding of the complexities of the album with knowledge of music theory. You can read somebody with like
the arpeggios.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, you can listen to it and just be like, holy shit, and that sentiment will be worth a lot more than thinking that you gotta like meditate on it.
Yeah, I'm gonna come out of it going, wow, that sax went hard, not thinking about where an 808 could have been placed.
Yeah. I think about how it lines up in the canon of I don't know, post-industrial jazz, like in the context of the postmodern, like it's a great album, and that's what I like about it, is that it's good and I like it and I listen to it and I smile.
I guess that's a
I guess
that's a good way to. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was listening to it on my bike too, because a lot of it's very like physical too. Like I just start off, I would put on Batman. I just before I redid this, I was going to the store, hopped on my bike and was just pedaling, and I just feel like it just gives me so much energy.
Hell yeah.
Well, I guess I'm gonna get to the point then of, I really like this. I would recommend it, and I think like whether you like jazz or not, give it a try. It's really interesting, and at the very least you'll come out with something new to talk about, something like that you'll have heard that maybe other people won't have done, or maybe we didn't, and there'll be like a lot of a lot there for basically anyone. So I would have to recommend it. What do you think, Smoski?
Yeah, I would say the same. I definitely recommend it. Um, even from like perspective of liking more of like the like hardcore grindcore like type of music. Like coming from that, this is a really nice kind of perspective on it of like just seeing people completely out like that you wouldn't think would enjoy that type of music, like embracing it. I don't know, it's just really nice to see, I think, and I recommend it.
Of course, you Humbat, you'll recommend it.
Yeah, for it's I don't know what else can I say.
Yeah.
It's for an album that does so many things and is performed by people who are incredibly knowledgeable and proficient at what they do. For everything that could be considered inaccessible about it, it's an insanely rewarding listen, and you can pull a lot from it. You can have fun with it. You can go get into fistfights in the street listening to it. You can listen to it in your bed. I don't know. I think it's a great
Listen
springboard
to it in
for
church.
people.
Fuck it.
Yeah, fuck it. Like drop acid. Go talk to the cops about crimes you didn't commit while listening to this. There's something here for everybody.
Play it during your
And,
lethal injection. Yeah.
Yeah.
uh, yeah. Yeah, don't be scared of jazz. Don't be scared of this album. Or maybe be a little bit scared if that helps you enjoy it.
Yeah.
Um, but I can't recommend this album more.
All right, well, that'll be where we're going to end it. If you enjoyed it, please let us know. If you want to see more of this, let us know. Any recommendations, anything like that. And thank you all for listening to the first episode of the Spin It podcast. Goodbye.
Bye.
Take care.